I'm the mother of the Buddhist prince of the capital's elite circle. My son was born emotionally detached, that is, until he broke his vows for a starlet and re-entered the mortal world. Shinsu traded his entire fortune to make that starlet marry him. Everyone marveled at the depth of passion in this seemingly heartless man, who could relinquish a vast fortune without a second thought. He resented me for all my obstructions, vowing never to see me again in this life, as I lay bedridden. He merely uttered a quiet Buddhist chant, "Karma, she brought this fate upon herself." Later, I was reborn back to the day he declared his intent to enter the monastic life. This time, I personally saw him off to be tonsured and ordained. Then, I turned and named the wolf cub I had raised with my own hands as my heir. 1. Shinsu didn't come to see me until the day I was dying. By then, my consciousness was fading, and I couldn't even open my eyes. I overheard the nurses whispering. The young master truly lives up to his Buddhist devotion, showing such compassion. Even after all the harm his mother caused him, he still softened his heart to visit her in the end. That's not all. Do you think this woman could have stayed here all these years, receiving proper care, without the young master pulling strings behind the scenes? Given what she's done, she should have been out on the streets long ago. The sound abruptly ceased as the visitor entered the ward. I heard the clatter of prayer beads and the sharp click of high heels. A wisp of sandalwood, mingled with an overpowering perfume, assaulted my fragile senses. I wanted to cough, but I no longer had the strength. This is a sterile room. Anyone entering should be fully sanitized. Shinsu walked in just like that, without any precautions, only hastening my death. Every bit of power I had granted him had become a dagger he now turned against me. "Mother, we've come to see you." That was Xian Yue's voice. The same glamorous star of the entertainment world whom Shinsu was willing to spend his entire fortune to marry. Little does she know she's just a stand-in. Xian Yue sighed. If only mother had agreed to let me be with Asu back then, our family would be happy and harmonious now. Why did things have to come to this? Ba, all things are governed by karma. She was the one who wronged you first, and then she insisted on fighting with dad for power. Ending up like this is entirely her own doing. Even though I had long been disappointed in Shinsu to the point of disgust, hearing him say such things still sent a chill through my heart. There is no sorrow greater than a heart grown cold. 2. My heart had long grown cold towards Shinsu. I nearly gave my life to bring this child into the world, and I've cherished and raised him with everything I have. Yet, he's always pining for the love of a father who never comes home. Completely blind to all my sacrifices, the more he yearns for that man, the colder he is toward me. Looking back now, it's clear he was rotten to the core from the very beginning. At 18, he resolved to renounce the world and enter the monastic life. He is my only son. I've poured my heart into raising him, and even if he shows me no affection, I will still love him with all a mother's strength. If he renounces the world to become a monk, what will become of our vast family estate? Am I just supposed to stand by and watch our family legacy be carved up and squandered? And what of his betrothed, the girl he was promised to since childhood? What is to become of her? He got to shrug off the burden, leaving the whole mess for me to clean up. I single-handedly held on to the family business against a pack of circling wolves, while Shinsu fell for a scandal-ridden actress on a variety show. He was the aloof, ethereal monk who had withdrawn from the world in his temple. Xian Yue was the glamorous socialite from the entertainment industry who stumbled into his sanctuary. He was cold and distant to everyone, but made an exception only for her. Xian Yue was bold and flirtatious, leaving Shinsu utterly flustered and blushing. The audience was completely obsessed with the ship. After the show ended, paparazzi even caught footage of Xian Yue going up the mountain to pay respects at the temple, only for the stoic monk to turn her away at the door. It wasn't until she faced another wave of online hate that Shinsu stepped out of seclusion for her sake. That's when everyone discovered the aloof monk was actually the crown prince of Beijing's elite social circle. 3. Shinsu was willing to trade his entire fortune for Xian Yue's hand in marriage, making his wealth her greatest source of confidence, and because I objected, I became the feudal, wicked mother-in-law in their perfect love story. The one who cruelly tries to tear the loving couple apart. I am the venomous snake swollen with ambition, the old spinster who can't win her husband's love. I was cyberbullied for a very long time, and Shinsu, who clearly had the power to scrub the internet clean for Xian Yue overnight, just stood by and coldly watched as others hurled vicious abuse at me, and yet, not a single penny of all his wealth was earned by his own hand. The vast fortune he amassed to win a beauty's smile, it all belongs to me. He was designated as the heir precisely to prevent the family fortune from falling into the hands of outsiders, yet he's handing over the legacy I've spent my life protecting to someone else. How could anyone not try to stop him? Even Shinsu's status as the captivating crown prince of the Beijing social scene is fundamentally because he is my son. Shinrujuan, because his surname is Shin. Shinsu merely glanced at me, as if that alone fulfilled his filial duty, and with my disgust for him, I closed my eyes. The last sense to fade before death is hearing. The moment my heart stopped, I thought I heard someone calling my name, young mistress, for, when I opened my eyes again, someone was indeed calling me young mistress, have some water. In a daze, I took the water offered to me. The warm water carried the unique, subtle sweetness of peach blossom honey. It's been ages since I last tasted peach blossom honey, ever since Shinsu lent out that peach grove, planted just for me, to serve as a filming location for XIMUA's new drama. When the crew left, the meticulously cultivated peach trees were a sorry sight. Blossoms carpeted the ground, trampled into dust, and many trees had been hacked down or broken for the sake of the set. The elderly gardener stroked the broken branches with a pained heart. The damage this time was so severe it might take a decade to recover. Afterwards, that once secluded peach grove turned into a viral fan spot. No matter how many times we emphasized it was private property, fans still sneaked in. When caught by the caretaker, they'd retort without a hint of shame, "This was a gift from the crown prince to our sister," she said on Weibo. Everyone was welcome to come check it out. "What? Are you trying to defy the crown prince?" In a fit of rage, I sold off that peach orchard, yet the fans still came after me. How pathetic can you be? Just because your own marriage is a mess, you can't stand to see others happy, you'd even sell someone else's token of love. How twisted are you? But that peach orchard was clearly a gift from my parents, planted even before I was born. The deed has been in my name for over 40 years. How on earth did it become someone else's token of love? Please don't be angry, miss. It's not worth ruining your health over it. I took a sip of water to steady myself. The man before me knelt gracefully on the carpet and began massaging my legs. The fabric of his suit was delicate and expensive. He had come to see me before even changing into his casual clothes. Yunshin. Shin Yunshin's hands were still massaging the acupressure point on my calf, hearing me call his name. He obediently looked up. "Weren't you abroad handling business?" Shin Yunshin spoke to me with a rare hint of personal emotion. "I just signed the contract last night. As soon as I heard Xiao Su had upset you at home, I came back immediately." His usually gentle eyes darkened slightly. "Xiao Su has really gone too far this time." I leaned back lazily against the velvet cushion. "So, what do you think I should do with him now? Xiao Su is not a child anymore. It's only natural he has his own mind. Sometimes, you have to let him run headfirst into a wall. Once he gets hurt, he'll come back on his own." Shin Yunshin was kneading the sole of my foot with just the right pressure. I pressed down on his palm with a bit of force, stopping his movement. "Are you suggesting I just stand by and watch him become a monk?" I narrowed my eyes, my thoughts inscrutable. Shin Yunshin lowered his head. "I am merely presenting one option. You, young mistress, are the head of the Shin family. Everything of the Shin family is yours. You may dispose of it as you wish. In any case, the young mistress's decision is always correct." I stared at him in silence for a long moment before letting out a soft chuckle. What an excellent idea. As Shinsu's mother and the head of the Shin family, I had decided to personally send him off, to be ordained as a monk. Then, I will remove him from the family registry. From this day forth, Shinsu will cease to exist in this world. 5. The 18-year-old Shinsu remained expressionless. When he learned I was allowing him to enter the monastic life, he actually looked a bit incredulous. I sneered. "What, still hoping to see me beg you through tears not to leave the householder's life? That little wretch. He's had these manipulative games down pat since he was a child. The more kindness I showed him, the more he would use his own lack of a father's love to make me feel guilty, pushing me to lower my boundaries for him again and again. I've squandered my own precious health to bring forth such a worthless wretch. It's true what they say, inferior genes are hereditary." Shinsu's face betrayed the full humiliation of having his secret thoughts exposed. On the way to the temple, I kept my eyes closed, resting my mind, and never once glanced his way. Shinsu was restless, but his stubborn pride kept him from speaking. "What's the matter?" Having second thoughts. He seemed to have seen through my little game, thinking I did all this just to make him regret it. Little did he know, I had already seen right through him. I said that on purpose to provoke him, to make him steel his resolve and not regret a thing. He said with unwavering resolve, "I have absolutely no regrets." "That's good, Shinsu. No one will be there to indulge you anymore." Shinsu looked out the window and replied, "There never was. And I never needed it." A faint smile touched my lips. I could only hope he would always think that way. 6. The temple was closed to the public today, and the abbot himself came out to greet me. Following the long agreed-upon procedure, we shaved his head and robed him in monastic garments. As his hair was being shorn, Shinsu's eyes were filled with panic. In his view, Entering the Buddhist order was meant to be a life of quiet contemplation. He would not shave his head, but keep his own hair, nor would he don these coarse, baggy monastic robes. Opting instead for custom-tailored, exquisite garments, he certainly wouldn't sleep in a communal dormitory. He would reside in a secluded courtyard with cloistered walkways. In fact, that is precisely how he lived in his previous life. After he had officially taken his vows and received his ordination certificate, I announced with a smile, "From today onward, you are no longer the heir of the Shin family, nor are you my son. I have reclaimed all the assets under your name. And your name has been formally removed from the family register. Come to think of it, you should thank me. With your educational background, you'd never have gotten into such a prestigious and thriving temple on your own. Consider this your mother's final favor to you. Go in peace and devote yourself to the Buddha." Heartless One, Heartless One. That's his monastic name now. How fitting it is for him. 7. In that instant, the panic on Shinsu's face was impossible to conceal. I couldn't help but feel a flicker of amusement. How laughable. Shinsu, my son, finally has a day where he can't keep up the act in front of me. The range of emotions he's shown today is greater than what I've seen from him in an entire year. What a clown. So, having regrets now, like teasing a puppy, I watched all his emotions unfold with keen amusement. Shinsu's panic vanished the instant I spoke, retreating behind the serene mask of the ascetic he wished to portray. They are but worldly possessions. How could I possibly regret them? Please leave, benefactress. Worldly possessions. For someone raised in a den of luxury, every fiber of their being is nourished by these worldly possessions. Since when is it his place to look down on these worldly possessions? If they're just worldly possessions, then give me back that agarwood prayer beads on your wrist. You've lost the right to wear such a precious thing. Shinsu became even more convinced that I was doing all this just to make him regret it. Yet, when I mentioned that string of agarwood prayer beads, he still flew into a rage of shame. He tore the beads from his wrist and flung them to the ground. He's no true ascetic, free from all worldly desires. He's utterly fond of these prayer beads, fondling them in his palm day after day, this time, to project an image of detachment. He only brought his absolute favorite string, the one he usually keeps locked in a display case, rarely willing to take it out. Now that I've touched upon something he genuinely treasures, no wonder he reacted with such furious embarrassment. Take it back, please leave, and do not disturb my meditation. The abbot chanted a quiet prayer, picked up the string of prayer beads, and handed it back to me. This string of prayer beads, it seems to be the legendary, rarely seen treasure of Fayun Temple. I nodded, my expression indifferent. You have a keen eye, abbot. It is indeed that very one. These prayer beads have been passed down through generations. The last keeper was my own martial uncle. They are priceless, beyond any market value, and could never be bought with mere money. You must have pleaded with the utmost sincerity and possessed profound, blessed karma. I took the string of beads. Speaking as if recounting someone else's tale, the year my son turned 4, due to his father's negligence, he went missing for a full 4 hours. He was caught in a downpour, terrified and in shock. The best doctors at the time were all telling me to prepare for the worst. I did everything I could. I couldn't understand why so many top experts couldn't save one child. It was only later I found out his father, to shirk responsibility, stubbornly waited a full 20 hours. It wasn't until he saw the situation was beyond saving that he finally agreed to take him to the hospital. I went up the mountain to ask for prayer beads, but the abbot refused to give them to me. I was ready to take them by force, but in the end, I held back, fearing it would diminish my son's blessings. The abbot said that a sincere heart could move heaven. Not knowing what true sincerity was, I began kneeling at the foot of the mountain, bowing every 3 steps. All the way until the sun rose over the golden peak and the rain cleared. Perhaps it really was divine protection. The very night I placed the prayer beads around his neck, his condition suddenly stabilized. Shinsu's silhouette trembled slightly, yet he stubbornly kept his neck stiff, refusing to turn back. But I couldn't care less. I slipped the prayer beads onto my wrist and sneered. I was in the hospital, burning up and unconscious for 7 days. Looking back now, I should have prayed for my own sake. I turned and walked away without a single glance back. It never even crossed my mind. As far as I'm concerned, my son died in that downpour when he was 4 years old. 8. Shinsu can afford to be this defiant only because he's my one and only son. No matter how many harsh words I say, he remains my sole heir. It was the same in my past life. He believed that no matter who led the Shin family, he would always be its only rightful successor, but he doesn't know. He's my only son, while his father has more than one. The marks of childbirth on a woman are too heavy, carving a deep scar into her entire life. The entire 10 months leave unavoidable marks on the body, whether it's a C-section or a natural birth. It involves irreversible pain, no matter how wealthy or powerful this woman may be, but it's different for a man. Whether he has a child or not is a fleeting matter. Gone without a trace, who could ever find out? My marriage to Shinsu's father, Lu Yingting, was an arranged union between two prominent families. Our engagement was decided in childhood, and we were meant to cultivate feelings over time. Yet, every time he went through the motions to appease the elders, he would turn cold and distant toward me. This is just a marriage of convenience, nothing more. There's no love between us. From now on, treat it like a job. Outside of fulfilling our obligations, we won't impose restrictions on each other or interfere in each other's lives. It's just that he's different from Shinsu. I genuinely have no feelings for him. Even if he treats me this way, I don't really care, because my attitude towards him isn't exactly great either. Lu Yingting rushed to marry me right after I graduated from university. As long as an heir is produced, his mission will be accomplished. I agreed, and then proceeded with the IVF. During that period, Lu Yingting was constantly surrounded by scandals and flaunted his affairs, even deliberately parading them in front of me. Anyone with eyes could see he was trying to provoke me into a jealous rage. The way I looked at him back then is exactly how I look at Shinsu now. They're all just clowns. Given that this marriage was defined as such from the very beginning, it's far too presumptuous to now fantasize about living together as a proper couple. The period when I was pregnant with Shinsu was the most difficult time of my life. Even with the highest standard of care for a pregnant woman, the physical agony cannot be erased. Even the wealthiest woman must endure the lochia discharge. Lu Yingting only showed up after the child was born. Upon learning I had a son, he was overjoyed and eagerly set about choosing a name. The list he provided was filled with names, all calculated by a master according to the Lu family's generational hierarchy. But I declared that the child would take the surname Shin. Lu Yingting flew into a rage. But any one of my female bodyguards could take him on single-handedly. I watched him with a cold, detached gaze. You're not even the eldest son, what do you need an heir for? The tiger of Yin. Lu Yingting is only the third in line. The lion's share of the family fortune has already been divided up by the first two. You can't possibly expect me to end up with no heir. Isn't Shinsu your son? If not taking your surname means you're left without an heir, then if he did take your surname, I'd be the one left without one. Lu Yingting's final compromise was for me to have a second child. I mailed the divorce papers to his office, and he never brought up having a second child again. He's not even the firstborn, and there's no great fortune to inherit. What makes him think I'm obligated to bear him a second child? I was emotionally unstable postpartum. One night, when he came home late, I held Shinsu and stared at him with a chilling intensity. Since you won't get a divorce, then don't you dare let me find out you've fathered a child elsewhere. The only child in this family will be Shinsu. If I find out, don't blame me for breaking all three of your legs. Marrying me is the only way he can stand on equal footing with his older siblings, or even outrank them. When it comes to fighting for the inheritance, he'll need to rely on the Shin family to get a bigger share. There's no way he'd ever divorce me. After handling the procedures for Shinsu's assets, the butler confirmed the details with me as a matter of routine. The matter of removing the young master from the family registry has been announced. The ancestral hall will be formally opened on the 8th of this month. However, if I may be so bold as to ask, have you made any arrangements for a new heir? 9. The Shin family is an old and prominent lineage, with numerous collateral branches. Everyone has their eyes on the vast wealth of the main line, hoping to get a piece of the pie. Otherwise, why would I have gone to such lengths to prevent Shinsu from renouncing the world and becoming a monk? With a direct line lacking an heir, the selection must inevitably come from the collateral branches. If a successor is not confirmed before my death, then once the direct line becomes extinct, all of my estate will be divided up and picked clean according to inheritance law. Shinsu genuinely has a family fortune to inherit. I raised him from childhood to be the heir, but he often complained I was too controlling, and that the family business was complex and burdensome. When the time came for him to gradually take over the company, he delegated the authority I gave him right back out. He became a hands-off boss, but lacked the ability to read people, placing his full trust in those his father recommended. Lu Yingting's smooth takeover of the company owes no small thanks to my wonderful son. How absurd that I ended up having to scheme just to reclaim the power that was rightfully mine. He enjoyed all the privileges of being the heir, yet shirked the responsibilities and even chose to renounce the world and become a monk. Back then, the Shin family elders condemned me with righteous indignation, each claiming it was for the family's rise and fall, accusing me of lacking virtue and failing in raising my children. Looking back now, I realize I was far too lenient with them. How dare anyone presume to speak out of turn in my presence? This repossession of the assets under Shinsu's name is the perfect opportunity to also reclaim the authority he had carelessly given away. Fortunately, he only began to take on some responsibilities at 16, so it's not too late. The rot hasn't had a chance to spread. The butler was left to me by my parents. He is the very embodiment of the Shin family's rules and would never dare to interfere in its affairs. My word is the law. I will change the heir. It doesn't matter if he's of Shin blood or not. If I say he is, then he is. So, I told him, I intend to adopt Shin Yunshin as my own, on the day the ancestral hall was opened. Quite a few people did come out to make a fuss. They're mostly a bunch of old-timers in their 60s or 70s. Just because they're senior to me, they think they can raise their voices at me. 10. My female bodyguard is really on top of things. She kept them a good distance away long ago. They couldn't even get near the inner hall's door, and the way they were shouting their heads off outside was truly pathetic. Shinsu is the sole heir of the Shin family. Now that he's gone down the wrong path, not only did you fail to stop him, but you're actually letting him become a monk. That man looks venerable with his white hair and carries an air of authority, but in reality, he's a distant relative. So many generations removed it's hard to count. Rujuan, you can strike Xiao Su from the family register if you must, but have you given any thought to the Shin family's future? Are you really going to follow in your parents' footsteps? Your father was 46 when he had you. Do you think you can still bear children at your age? Before I could even speak, Shin Yunshin, who had come to pay respects at the ancestral altar with me, darkened his expression. He turned and shot a cold glance at the man. The young mistress is still in the prime of her life. At the very least, the Shin family's future won't require anyone's concern until you're 6 feet under. I didn't care what these old fossils were saying. With so many bodyguards outside the ancestral hall, the worst that could happen was knocking a couple of their teeth out. It's a rare treat to hear Shin Yunshin swear. Quite amusing. Actually, the old fossil outside was hopping mad. The head of the family hasn't spoken yet. You bastard, who do you think you are? Have you no respect for propriety? I held a piece of paper in my hand, with a swift stroke of the pen. The name on it was blotted out by ink. I stood up, took Shin Yunshin's hand, and walked to the door. The sun is scorching today, and everyone outside is dressed in formal wear, sweating profusely. The ancestral hall originally had a sunshade, but I specifically ordered it removed. I flung that piece of paper down the steps. Yunshin has been adopted under my name. He is the next heir of the Shin family. His word is my word. The old man, who had been shouting, was about to voice his objection when his gaze suddenly fell upon the paper I had thrown to the ground. He's nothing but a dog of the Shin family. What gives him the right? He was cut off like a duck with its neck wrung, rubbing his presbyopic eyes. He strained to make out what was written on that piece of paper. I explained with a beaming smile. Looks familiar, doesn't it? It's that page from your family register, freshly torn out and still warm. Now, the names on it were connected by straight, inked lines. 8 generations of his ancestors, 4 living under one roof, were neatly and completely struck from the family record. All that bluster, but when the knife was truly at his throat, he realized he was nothing but a fish on the chopping block, utterly powerless to fight back. He dares to defy me, all while riding on my coattails. He has no sense of his own place. Shin Yunshin followed behind me, seemingly struggling immensely to adapt to his new role. He's the wolf child I brought back from the underground fighting pits. 11, I was 20 then. And Shin Yunshin was only 8, the star attraction of the arena. Among the towering peaks of the northeast, the alpha leading the wolf pack was, astonishingly, a child. The photographer who discovered him was surrounded by the pack and then saved by the boy. He shadowed and filmed him for half a year, during which time he also earned the wolf child's trust. The photographer then left the forest and sold the footage to an underground beast fighting arena. This kind of spectacle was far more captivating than watching adults battle wild beasts. The child was not raised by the wolf pack from infancy, but was abandoned after he had gained consciousness. That he became the leader of the wolf pack was nothing short of a miracle. I often place bets at the Colosseum, but I never watch the fights against the beasts. Only that one time, I was drawn in by the released footage. Ever since then, I've watched every single one of the Wolf Boys matches. Every time I bet on him to win. The wolf child did not disappoint me. He won every single fight. His win rate remained sky high. The stakes grew ever larger, and the beasts he faced became more and more massive. On that day, the curtain was pulled back from the cage to reveal a fully grown tiger. The wolf child's condition was off, too. His belly was flat. Clearly he hadn't eaten. The odds for this match are absolutely insane. The crowd has gone completely wild. It's clear the arena is shorting the fight. With odds this crazy, it's the Wolfchild's final appearance. An eerie silence fell over the arena. The atmosphere was unprecedentedly grim. Everyone could foresee the carnage that was about to unfold. He was going to be torn to pieces. No one had imagined he could hold out this long, just as he was on the verge of turning the tide. The toll of overexertion began to take hold. Just as the Wolfchild was about to meet his end in the tiger's jaws, I opened the 2 layers of bulletproof glass shielding the spectator stands. I took the bodyguard's mechanical bow, knocked an arrow, and drew the string. The iron arrow pierced the tiger's skull, and its massive body crashed to the ground. Only then did the onlookers realize that the child, who had seemed doomed, had driven his wooden stake almost entirely into the tiger's eye. Our eyes met, and the sheer, blazing will to survive in his gaze was almost scorching. A staff member approached to inquire. I can't lose to the kid I bet on. I bought the Wolfchild and brought him home, using exactly 70% of the winnings I'd lost at the arena as his redemption price. It was a transaction that left both parties thoroughly satisfied. I gave him the name Shinyunshin. My father said raising this child would serve as early practice for me in grooming an heir. 12. If Shinyunshin truly proves capable, we can have him entered into the family register. He could assist my own children in the future. 20 years have passed, and Shinyunshin has clearly grown into a more suitable heir than Shinsu. He is my voice in the outside world, my most trusted confidant, and also what many distant relatives, who can hardly get their hands on the family fortune, call a stray dog I picked up. He only wags his tail for me. Did you do all this, miss? Just to make Xiaosu regret it. I shook my head. He's not worth all this effort anymore. I looked at Shinyunshin. There wasn't a trace left of the boy who was raised by wolves, tall, distinguished, steady, yet not the least bit stodgy, blessed with exceptionally good looks. He's exactly the son I always dreamed of. Nothing like that useless lump Shinsu. Where did it all go wrong? After much thought, the only explanation is that the other half's genes were simply too inferior. Now that I've ditched that defective product, I'm in an excellent mood. As the Shin family heir, you don't need to call me miss anymore. You should start calling me master. Start calling me mother. What's gone wrong this time? Shinyunshin's expression was so serious. It was as if he were giving me an official report. They used to call me the young mistress's dog. Now that I've switched sides, of course they call me master. 13. I couldn't help but laugh, though on second thought, it did seem a bit inappropriate. I'm only 12 years older than him, and besides, he's not a child anymore. At 28, he's reached the age where he should be thinking about marriage. Calling me mom really isn't appropriate. Call me sister instead. I remember the first word you ever said was Jia, elder sister. He was old enough to be conscious when he was abandoned. He wasn't uneducated from birth, and his language faculties hadn't deteriorated back then. I found the sight of an 8-year-old learning to speak novel, so I taught him to say young mistress every day. He mumbled for a long time, unable to form a complete syllable. When he finally managed to speak, all that came out was the word Jia, sister. Being able to utter even that single word was a huge step forward. The doctor told him to practice making sounds more often, even if it was just that one word. From then on, Shinyunshin would follow me around every day, calling me Jia, older sister. I got so annoyed hearing it that I flicked my sleeve at him. Who's your sister? Don't you dare think of yourself as my little brother. The Shin family has no young master. I'm not sure if he truly understood, but from that day on, his speech development accelerated dramatically, words tumbling out of his mouth like beans poured from a bamboo tube. From then on, he always called me young mistress. Now that his name is inscribed in the family register, calling me sister is perfectly justified. In a past life, Shinsu claimed that Shinyunshin had transferred assets, bought up scattered shares, and even allied with the board of directors to challenge his authority. On the very day he was indicted for financial crimes, he fled the country by helicopter. The aircraft crashed, and no remains were ever found, but Shinsu had always steered clear of the family business, more than happy to be a hands-off figurehead. So why would he suddenly start vying for power? By the time I returned to the country, Shinyunshin had already been convicted. I was presented with a mountain of irrefutable evidence. It was the first time I had ever lost my temper with Shinsu so severely. Our mother-son relationship plummeted to rock bottom. He gave me the cold shoulder, so I stopped giving him the time of day. So, Shinsu had been wary of Shinyunshin all along. He was nowhere near as indifferent to fame and fortune as he liked to think. He's full of flaws and doesn't even realize it. This time around, it's perfect. There's no need to fight anymore. Shinyunshin inheriting the family fortune is only right and proper. I didn't just let Shinsu do as he pleased. I had someone keep an eye on his every move. He thought monastic life was just about eating vegetarian food, chanting sutras, and living in quiet seclusion. 14, as it turned out, He had to get up before dawn every morning for the early service. Given his current rank, he was also assigned to take turns doing various menial chores. Shinsu is extremely picky about food. To cater to his palate, the kitchen at home has mastered the art of turning simple vegetarian dishes into culinary masterpieces. Even when eating meat, it had to be prepared so meticulously that not a trace of its origin was visible, making a single meal an utterly tedious affair. In his past life, even after renouncing the world, he had a dedicated vegetarian chef. Despite 3 exquisitely prepared meals a day, he would only take a few bites before putting down his chopsticks. But now, forget about having meals specially prepared for him. He can't even get his hands on the temple's vegetarian fare. That's reserved for the temple's devotees. He's flat broke, with no money for special meals. He had to eat the same plain, tasteless food as everyone else. His delicate stomach couldn't handle it, sending him to the bathroom countless times a day. That sure cured his germophobia in a hurry. I made it clear, he gets the exact same treatment as everyone else. Forget about special treatment. It's a miracle he wasn't actively sabotaged. Shinsu was stubborn, refusing to yield even an inch. Though each day in the temple felt like a year, he forced himself to carry on. That was until the person keeping an eye on him called me. They said Shinsu had collapsed from exhaustion and malnutrition and had been taken to the hospital. Would you like to take a look? This physique is no good. Once he wakes up, hand him over to the warrior monks for some training. These little tricks are nothing more than using morality as a shackle, trying to force me to feel sorry for him. Pity for him. I've already let go of morality. Malnutrition is proof that he refuses to eat, and refusing to eat means he's simply not exhausted enough. When someone is utterly exhausted, they don't care what the food is like. They're just grateful to have something to eat. Shinsu secretly called Lu Yingting from the hospital. Look, even after being hospitalized, he still wouldn't call me. He just turned right back to the father he idolizes. 15. Lu Yingting came to see me that very night. Did you send Xiao Su off to become a monk? Lu Yingting was actually quite handsome in his youth. He and his elder siblings had different mothers. His own mother was once a hugely popular star. He had inherited his mother's looks, but clearly, they didn't cherish it to the very end. He's put on some weight now. The once-defined 8-pack is long gone, and his every move carries a greasy, effeminate air. He was the one who insisted on becoming a monk. He gave me the silent treatment for 3 whole months over it, wouldn't say a single word to me. Since he was rebelling like that, I had no choice but to let him have his way. I was pruning the rose stems when I heard him launch into his sanctimonious lecture. He's our only son. If he's being reckless, must you encourage him? If he renounces the world to become a monk, what will become of the Shin family legacy? The rose I had nurtured for so long was severed with a sharp snip of the shears, the entire blossom falling away, leaving behind only the purplish stem. Precisely because he is my only son, I don't want him shackled by concerns of property and inheritance. Haven't you always supported every decision he makes? Whenever I try to teach him, you always say I'm being too strict. Now we're on the same page. All that matters is his happiness, so why are you suddenly unhappy with that? 2 men. Exploiting a mother's innate trust and pity for her child to control and coerce her, as if the umbilical cord had turned into chains, which they were now brutally yanking on. Once she sheds the mantle of motherhood, they'll be sent sprawling by the very force of their own pull. Lu Yanting was at a loss for words. He's still our own flesh and blood, no matter what. You can't just ignore him when he's fainted. How many times has he been sick that I haven't been the one to care for him? If he'd resent me for missing just this once, then perhaps this son isn't worth keeping. Yet it's you, who's never been there for him, that he truly holds dear. I've always felt there was something wrong with how I raised him, so now I've decided to follow your lead. If I also leave him to his own devices and stop meddling, he'll probably think I'm a good mother. I turned my head with a pleased smile. After all these years, I've taken such good care of myself that you can't tell my age at all. If I hadn't given birth to Shinsu, I'd probably still look the same as I did at 20. Even after all this time, a flicker of admiration passed through Lu Yanting's eyes. While I gave him a once-over and couldn't hide my look of disdain, it hasn't been that long. How did you get so fat? Lu Yingting examined himself with skepticism. He had indeed put on some weight, but he was still within a normal range. He'd just lost his muscle tone, hardly what you'd call fat. Don't tell anyone you're the Shin family's son-in-law. It's bad for the company's image. If it really comes to it, just get a divorce. The kids are grown up now, and you're not really needed anymore. With the children around, the connection between the Shen and Lu families won't be severed anyway. Lu Yingting refused, saying they had made it this far over the years, and there was no need to go their separate ways now. He then went home, ran 10 kilometers, and did 200 push-ups. having not exercised for too long, he pulled a muscle and ended up in the hospital. What a deep father-son bond, they're practically telepathic. Thankfully, Shinsu and I aren't that close. After leaving the hospital, Lu Yingting's sense of urgency kicked in. Not only did he shoo away all the admirers around him, but he also started showing up in front of me all the time to get my attention. 16, at first. He didn't care about this arranged marriage and even saw it as a restriction on his freedom. That was until he tasted the benefits of being the Shin family's son-in-law. He enjoyed the perks while still chasing after his so-called freedom. Now, it's my turn to collect the interest. The night Lu Yingting returned, I had the butler find a few young, handsome male models with slender waists and long legs, having kept my distance from men all these years. The few top-tier male models before me clearly understood the staggering fortune that lay before them. Each one pulled out all the stops to showcase their best assets, making Lu Yingting, who was preening on the side, look like a molting, gaudy peacock by comparison. Who on earth gave him that terrible advice? Every strand of his hair reeked of meticulous, over-the-top styling. Still here, planning to be a third wheel. Lu Yingting's gaze turned dangerous. Your husband is right here. Do you need another man? I slowly looked him up and down. My scrutinizing gaze made him squirm with discomfort. I scoffed. 20 years ago, you might have had the looks to be one of them. If you're trying to seduce someone now, take a good look in the mirror first. Too little, too late. You were the one who said when we got married, no restrictions, no interference. You've never been short of company yourself. And it's not like you haven't brought it right to my doorstep before. I wrapped my arm around the handsome male model who had sidled up to me and looked at Lu Yingting with a sneer. If you can't take it, then let's get a divorce. I'm free to go to the Civil Affairs Bureau anytime. I have countless ways to make him suffer. But divorce is the most fitting method of all. Just as Shinsu is the shackle that binds me, divorce is the iron collar around Lu Yingting's neck. Over the years, he has relied on the Shin family's influence to offend his own siblings repeatedly. If he divorces me, he will not only lose everything in an instant but also be devoured alive by his brother and sister. Lu Yingting's face turned ashen, and he practically fled in disgrace. I watched his pitiful retreat, not even daring to close the door loudly as he left. Don't rush, this is only the beginning. I have all the time in the world to play this game. I wonder if Lu Yingting, in his past life, was even more wretched when he discovered the Shin family he had obtained was nothing but an empty shell. I was reading a book after my shower when there was a knock at the door. Sister, may I come in? 17, come in. Shin Yunchen had recently begun formally handling the family business as the Shin heir, and the change in his status came with a significantly increased workload, so he moved into the old Shin family residence from outside as well. It's just that his social engagements suddenly multiplied. He'd come home late every night and leave again early in the morning, even though he was staying in the very same small room from his childhood, right next to my bedroom. We hadn't seen each other for a fortnight. When he first arrived home, driven by some animal instinct, he followed me around all day like a puppy. He couldn't understand a word I said, just stared at me with those clear, innocent black eyes and stuck out his tongue in a fawning gesture. His body was a map of injuries, old wounds from the jungle, fresh ones added in the arena. The worst was a leg fracture that had healed on its own without treatment. The bone had to be rebroken and reset. Shin Yunchen's first instinct upon waking every day was to look for me. Perhaps from his time living with the wolf pack, his sense of smell was far keener than any ordinary person's. If I was home, no matter where I hid, he would always find me. I was utterly exasperated and snapped at him. Mom chided me. If you're this impatient with a child his age, what will you do when you have your own? I would always scoff. This wasn't raising a child, it was more like raising a puppy. He didn't need me to treat him like a child anyway. He was just clingy. My heart softened in the end. Seeing him drag his injured leg to find me was truly pitiful, and on top of that, he was being excessively well behaved. I had him moved to the room next to mine. It proved to be a wise decision. When I was pregnant, no matter what minor disturbance occurred, Shin Yunqing would be by my side in an instant. Even his habit of massaging my legs for me started back then. During my pregnancy, my legs were swollen and I would sometimes get cramps in the middle of the night. Shin Yunqing would look up the acupressure points in a book and massage them for me. It was the same with taking care of the baby. Whenever Shinsu cried, he would become perfectly calm as long as Shin Yunqing was holding him. Despite this profound, almost brotherly and fatherly bond, Shinsu never got along with Shin Yunqing. Later, he even resorted to such clumsy methods in an attempt to have him killed. No wonder he could be so heartless even to his own mother. When Shin Yunqing was 18, he asked to move out of the old house. After going around in circles, he ended up moving back into his original room. Shinsu once wanted to turn that room into a storage space, and I gave him a good talking to. Good thing he didn't go through with it. Shin Yunshin walked in, still in his work attire, a well-pressed suit, with faint dark circles under his eyes. His face was like still water. What's wrong? Is someone giving you a hard time, or is work not going well? That shouldn't be the case. I've taken care of everything. No one should be foolish enough to disobey. Or has Lu Yingting already planted someone in the company? Since we're at the old house anyway, why not have Shin Yunqing rough him up to let off some steam? Or, if it's about something else, we could just have Lu Yingting take a beating instead. He's right here at home, might as well make the most of it and give him a thrashing. The house smells like a lot of different people. Are you auditioning suitors, sis? He closed the door with a soft click. The child from back then had grown into a man nearly 6'3", one eye was shrouded in shadow, making him look like a wolf poised to strike, yet the face he turned to me was, as always, one of devout, submissive, dog-like obedience. He tore off his tie, as if breaking free from a binding seal. Sis, I could be your lover too. No, seriously, where did it all go wrong? But as she took in the lines of Shin Yunshin's exposed form, the words of refusal never left her lips. I really want to call Lu Yingting over to observe and learn how proper seduction is done. First and foremost, you need the looks that stand out from the crowd, in a league of their own. Even after making such a sorry spectacle of himself last night, Lu Yingting could still manage to force a smile for me the next day. Rujuan, I know you were just trying to get a rise out of me yesterday. Those pretty boys were sent away in the middle of the night. 18. It's my fault for not cherishing you all these years. Let's start over. Beware of Greeks bearing gifts. I disrupted his plan, but I didn't extinguish his ambition. Without Shinsu, his most powerful ally in this life, he would have to rely solely on himself to seize control of the Shin family. With a beaming smile, I wheeled out a stroller containing a baby boy just a few months old. I was just about to bring this up. After all, a child shouldn't grow up without a father. Haven't you always wanted an heir? I've picked one out for you. Since Shinsu has left to become a monk, we'll just focus on raising the next one properly. I raised Xiaosu from childhood, so this one's your turn. I hope you'll truly cherish this opportunity. Lu Yingting's smile froze on his face. Is this your illegitimate child? I handed over a paternity test report. No need for such harsh words. This is your own flesh and blood. You'd better step up and take your responsibilities as a father seriously. The authoritative paternity test document clearly stated, Lu Yingting and Lu Xiaohu are confirmed to be biological father and son. After I left, Lu Yingting went berserk, tearing the test report to shreds, his face turning green with rage. Shen Rujuan, not only did you cheat on me, but you even had a bastard child, and now you expect me to play the fool and claim it as my own. No wonder you sent Xiaosu off to become a monk. You were just clearing the way for your little bastard. The child in the stroller, frightened by his terrifying expression, began wailing. Lu Yingting was already seething with rage, and the crying grated on his nerves, pushing him toward a dark and reckless impulse. If you dare to entrust the child to him, a man with rough hands and clumsy ways, then any harm, be it injury, death, or maiming, would simply be dismissed as carelessness. He raised his hand to strike the tender young face. His wrist was caught midair by a gnarled, powerful hand. The steward's voice was icy. You'd best be careful, sir. The young mistress is already quite displeased with you. She's only keeping you here for little Tiger's sake. Surely you don't wish to be sent back to your family in disgrace. Lu Yingting was caught in an unguarded moment, his expression frozen in a comically awkward grimace before he could compose himself. How could that be? Xiaohu carries the Lu family name. I'll take him to see his grandfather right now. My father has been longing for a grandson. You can't go home now, son-in-law. From now on, you'll be staying at the old residence to look after Xiaohu. He's still young and needs his father. Suppressing his rising anger, Lu Yingting retorted, what does a man like me know about taking care of a child? Here's an idea. I'll pay for a nanny, a professional, the most expensive one you can find. I'll cover the cost for as many as you need. The steward said with a thin, insincere smile, the Shin family has no shortage of money. What little Tiger lacks is a father's love. If you don't understand, that's fine. A specialist will be brought in to teach you how to care for a child. He clapped his hands, and two elderly matrons holding rulers stepped forward, with their hair coiled in dark buns and wearing loose, old-fashioned garments. They looked as if they had stepped right out of the Qing dynasty. The ancestors of these two ladies were specialists in teaching the wives of high officials and noble families how to care for children and be a proper spouse. Although you are the young master, our young lady is the Shin family's sole heiress. In this household, you are her spouse. Don't worry, they are professionals. They will teach you hands-on how to care for the child. If you make a mistake, it's no matter. They will correct you until you have learned and remembered it perfectly. The butler sneered, you'd better cherish the opportunity the young mistress has given you, sir. After all, we have the cautionary tale of young Master Xiaosu. Oh, I should say, the emotionless little monk now. In just half a month, Lu Yingting had grown gaunt, his eyes heavy with exhaustion. The child would cry every night, and the two nannies would wake Lu Yingting, then methodically instruct him on how to check why the baby was crying. 19. Changing diapers, cleaning the baby, preparing and feeding formula. He had to do it all himself. If he dared to slack off or make a mistake on purpose, he would be punished with a long ruler. Years of debauchery had left him weak, and the two old matrons were specially trained. He was no match for them. After the punishment, he had to practice with a life-sized, weighted doll of Lu Xiaohu until it became muscle memory. Even after the child fell asleep, he wasn't allowed to rest. A specialist was brought in to supervise his physical training. What right does a flabby old man have to be the Shin family's son-in-law? Wouldn't that just make us a laughingstock? That marriage alliance from over a decade ago has served its purpose. You're not much use anymore. Standing on the second floor, I looked down at the haggard Lu Yingting. How much support do you really think the Lu family can still offer you? He still needs me to secure his footing in the Lu family. In my past life, after I finally discovered the one who betrayed me was my own son, Lu Yanting sat in my office chair at the company. Shen Rujuan, oh Shen Rujuan, look at you now. Do you have any idea how much I've hated you? I was called a live-in son-in-law for over 20 years. I couldn't even have my own son bear my surname. Now, I've finally turned the tables. All these years, who hasn't been all respectful to my face? Only to whisper behind my back that I'm just a pretty boy riding on a woman's coattails. But these 2 decades of humiliation were worth it. Now, the entire Shin family fortune is firmly in my grasp. Instead of building his own career to stand tall after being humiliated, he blames his wife for being too formidable. His rise to power came not from his own hard work, but from scheming to seize his wife's family fortune. TSK, people are always making excuses for their own actions. It's their own greed and arrogance, yet they insist on blaming others. In that case, I'll just make his excuse a reality. The following month, Lu Yingting developed postpartum depression. The doctor told me his mental state is very poor right now, and he's highly likely to do something extreme that could harm the child. 20. He has already begun to harbor hatred towards this child. He will regret it. I had the doctor prescribe him some sedatives, no matter how much he doubts his own mental state. The results he gets will always say there's nothing wrong with him, he's just tired. A good rest is all he needs. There's no need for psychological intervention. I'm not stopping him from socializing, but in this state, negative social interactions will only agitate his mental state. I heard third young Master Lu has been staying home to look after the kids lately. Has he turned over a new leaf and become a house husband? Looks like it's true. He even smells of baby formula. Lu Yingting, you really have a way about you. Even after the Shin family's little prince was cast aside, your favor remains undiminished. When did you decide to have a second child? You didn't even tell us. And this child carries the Lu family name. Mind your words, they finally have an heir. Of course they're going to guard him like a precious treasure. Everyone present was shrewd. Shen Su being sent away to become a monk was a clear signal in itself. As for Lu Yingting, it's common knowledge that he's completely out of favor with his wife. The spawn of an actor truly has no class. He actually had the gall to brag in front of them about how his wife lets him run wild and chase other women. Letting him just means she couldn't care less, and he has the nerve to boast about it. He's practically begging to be made a laughingstock. All these years, Lu Yingting has been able to swagger around and throw his weight about solely because he's Shen Su's biological father. Hasn't he? Now that even Miss Shen has cast Shen Su aside, what chance does a husband like him, who isn't even fit to be called a trophy, possibly have? After being thoroughly ridiculed, Lu Yingting angrily cut ties with his so-called friends. It wasn't as if he hadn't considered relying on the Lu family. However, old Master Lu was getting on in years and had long been sidelined by his first wife's children. Reduced to a figurehead at home, Lu Yingting was the old man's most beloved youngest son. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been chosen for the marriage alliance with me. He saw the situation with perfect clarity, so he told Lu Yingting not to come back. It's just looking after a child. What's so difficult about that? You're in your 40s, not 4 years old, coming to tattle over such a trivial thing. Back then, Rujuan managed to raise Xiaosu all by herself. How come when it's your turn, you can't handle it? Remember this. No matter how Rujuan treats you, you must not divorce her. And don't even think about straying. Be good to Xiaohu, otherwise, in the end, no one will be able to protect you. Old Master Lu was a shrewd man. He gave Lu Yingting a sound thrashing and sent him back. In his younger years, Old Master Lu believed he could secure the family fortune for his youngest son, so he paid little mind to his son's debauchery, even permitting him to forego any pretense of propriety. Later, when his attempts to control his own children failed and he was sidelined, with Shen Su acting as his get-out-of-jail-free card, he still never considered reigning in Lu Yingting. The very preferences of his youth have now become the blades that tear Lu Yingting apart. Lu Yingting has no one to rely on but me. I remember from my past life that Old Master Lu passed away next month. Then we'll just wait until after he's gone. After all, the dead must be respected. It's just a shame his own son showed him no compassion. The moment Lu Yingting threw the child off the building, his mind was flooded with the thrill of revenge. Then, someone slapped him hard across the face. 21. Have you lost your mind? That's your own flesh and blood. Even a vicious tiger wouldn't harm its cubs. You monster, give me back my son. As he was being pummeled relentlessly, Lu Yingting finally roared out the fury that had been burning inside him. That's Shen Rujuan's bastard child. I want nothing to do with that little shit. How dare she have a child out of wedlock? While I don't even have a single child to carry my own name, Shen Su was just lucky last time, surviving a fever that lasted over 10 hours. But this is the 14th floor. That fatherless brat doesn't stand a chance. With that, he swung his fist at the woman standing before him. Where did this crazy woman come from? Shaolin, what are you doing here? Seizing the moment he paused, the woman clawed at his face several times, glaring at him with pure hatred. Watching the scene unfold, I couldn't help but clap my hands with savage glee. I took the chance to provoke Shen Su beside me. Your beloved daddy has wanted you dead for a long time. Shen Su, his bald head gleaming, was still reeling from the shock of hearing the father he worshipped like a god say he wanted him dead. I added salt to the wound with a cold remark. If you don't carry the Lu name, you're not his son. Passing on the family name and bloodline are his absolute obsessions. That's why he went and had another kid on the side. Your father has disowned you. Missing either one turns a whole child into a defective freak. How strange. Lu Yingting finally processed it, standing there dumbfounded. That's my son. From a distance, I watched his expression, as if his whole world had just collapsed. He screamed at the woman like a madman. Didn't I tell you to stay far away? How could you let her find you? Why didn't you protect our son? As the police pinned him to the ground, he didn't see the woman behind him, her face alight with the savage triumph of vengeance fulfilled. Shen Su remained rooted to the spot, his entire belief system seeming to crumble in that instant. I said softly, do you think the reason you never received your father's love is because he never came home? It's because he never loved you at all, you poor, foolish child. I've already given him so much love, but it's never enough for him. I don't know how to fill that bottomless pit, so, whether it's a lot, a little, or nothing at all, it doesn't matter anymore. As I turned to leave, Shen Su frantically tried to grab my hand. Mom. I paused in my steps. This is the first time you've called me Mom. You know, when you were little, I desperately hoped you would call me that, but you were always so emotionally distant. You only ever called me Mother. That was, until I heard him call Lu Yingting Dad, but that was only when I was a child. Terms of endearment carry affection. Once the affection is gone, the words naturally cease to matter. Perhaps it's not that Shen Su is emotionally distant, but that the bond between us was simply too thin. We finalized our divorce just before Lu Yingting was arrested. I won't agree to a divorce. Shen Rujuan, you're the one who got me into this mess, and now you think you can just kick me to the curb. Let me make this clear. If you don't get me out of here, you'll be stuck with a convict for a husband for the rest of your life. 22. I smiled. I'm not here for your permission. I'm here to deliver the court's ruling. Thanks for not coming home all these years and for spreading the evidence of your affair everywhere. We've been emotionally estranged and living apart for 2 years. Those conditions have been met many times over. I had already filed for divorce when Shen Su became a monk. The court judgment was delivered to the Lu family. As for who signed for it, that remains unknown. Caught between a rock and a hard place, he had no cards left to play. Before I left, he asked me, why did you choose me? There were clearly plenty of other options back then. I just wanted a child. Who the father is doesn't really matter. Marrying into my family is an opportunity countless people would kill for. It didn't really matter who I chose. Lu Yingting just happened to be the lucky one. If I had to think of anything special about him, it's probably because I was quite taken with his mother's looks. Furthermore, when he married me, Lu Yingting was still a blank slate. I never made a mark on it myself. But at least Shen Su was guaranteed. I'm the only child my parents had in their middle age. Growing up meant facing the pain of my parents aging, yet I was raised in nothing but abundant love. I had a nightmare where my mother passed away. I cried from the dream into waking, and spent the whole day in fear. At the time, I thought having a child might be a good idea. Now I realize that was a terrible mistake. After the series of devastating blows, learning that Lu Xiaohu was actually Lu Yingting's biological son, that Lu Yingting had personally thrown Lu Xiaohu off a building, and that Lu Yingting had been arrested and imprisoned, old Master Lu was finally driven to his grave by rage. A whole month earlier than in his previous life, Lu Yingting was on bad terms with his siblings, but the Lu family couldn't accept having a young master in prison. They had no choice but to pay a hefty sum to settle with Lu Xiaohu's mother. By the time Lu Yingting was bailed out, the family fortune had already been divided, with no heir to speak of. He ended up with a much smaller share of mostly worthless assets. Shensu was originally his son, which would have entitled him to a significantly larger portion, but then again, he never saw it that way himself, while it was a substantial sum. It paled in comparison to the Lu family's illustrious status and his own accustomed standard of living. His siblings were unanimous in their account. The bulk of his personal fortune had been squandered on bribes and connections in a desperate attempt to secure his release. Utterly powerless to fight back, he spiraled into despair, drowning his sorrows in drink daily, and was deliberately led astray by schemers into developing a gambling addiction. Not only was his vast fortune completely dissipated, but he was also left saddled with massive gambling debts, with no hope of help from the Lu family. His thoughts then turned to the substantial inheritance his own mother had received. By the time he thought to sponge off his parents, he found they had already emigrated with the inheritance. All their contact details were changed, and they were simply untraceable. As for where Lu Yingting ended up later, nobody knows. He could be in northern Myanmar, or perhaps somewhere in Africa, who knows. Nobody cares. Thank you for your help, I'll take Xiaohu and leave. From now on, he'll take my surname. Lu Yingting's son was killed by his own hands. The woman standing before me was Xiaohu's mother, barely in her 20s, 23. Lu Yingting's desire for a child never faded. In the early years, I kept a close watch, determined not to let Shensu pose the slightest threat, but in recent years, my focus has been entirely on Shensu, especially this past year when he started clamoring to renounce the world and become a monk, seizing every opportunity. He tried to secure an heir. He didn't even dare go to a proper hospital, resorting instead to old women in remote villages who could read a pulse. The moment the pregnancy was confirmed, she was sent abroad to rest and prepare for childbirth, and she wasn't even allowed to return after giving birth. A woman in her 20s, giving birth alone in a foreign land, and not being allowed to return home even after the baby was born. The caretakers around her changed their tune the moment the child was born. Everything revolved around the baby. Even though she was the mother, she was treated like a servant, forced to wait on him hand and foot. Even her time with the child was strictly controlled, under the pretext of preventing the child from becoming dependent on her. If I hadn't sent someone to bring them back to the country, she would have had a mental breakdown and nearly jumped off a building. Lu Yingting's tacit approval was undoubtedly behind this. After all, in the previous life, the mother was removed to keep the child, resulting in the child's personality becoming extreme and twisted. It's not as if he truly loved the child that much. In this life, staying with the mother will likely lead to a completely different outcome. Yes, Xiaohu is still alive. What Lu Yingting threw down was just a model of equal weight. The old nanny had him take turns holding the child and the model. And over time, he confused the two. On top of that, his mental state had been unstable for a long time. He was in such a hurry when he picked up the child that he had no time to tell the difference. He wears his heart on his sleeve. Besides, how could I possibly not be prepared for him? The real Xiaohu had long since fallen asleep in his mother's arms. Not bad acting. I praised the explosive force with which she charged forward, as hysterical as if the real Xiaohu had been thrown over the edge. I mean it from the bottom of my heart. I put up with him for far too long. The money from the Lu family was more than enough for her and her child to live in comfort for the rest of their lives. After the blow of his father's incident, Shensu realized there was no way he could win me back. Disheartened, he returned to the temple, truly seeming to have renounced the secular world. 24. If only he could have kept that up. The moment I heard Shensu ranting in the temple, claiming to be the crown prince of the capital's elite circle, I knew he had been reborn. Perfect timing. I refused to hold the sins of Shensu's past life against the Shensu of this one. Sending him to the temple is punishment enough. Yet, the sting of betrayal from my own flesh and blood is a wound that refuses to heal, and I have no one to turn this bitterness upon. Since that little bastard has also been reborn, he can't blame me for playing dirty. Talk about perfect timing. In an entertainment investment proposal Shen Yunshan showed me, Xi and Yue's variety show was listed, I immediately increased my investment and changed the show's format to be broadcast live from start to finish. Let's see if, in this life where Shinsu has lost everything, he and Xianue can still be as devoted and unwavering as they were in their past life. They absolutely have to stay together forever. This is a love that lasts till death do us part, sis. Since when did you start paying attention to the entertainment industry? Shin Yunshin asked me warily, noting that the variety show was full of top-tier young heartthrobs. I felt a headache coming on. For someone who's supposed to be settled in their 30s, he's acting more and more childish. I just noticed one of the guests looks a lot like the girl Shinsu likes, and the variety show's filming location is close to where he is. I'm just here for the drama. Shin Yunshin was skeptical but eventually nodded, taking the initiative to compile the guest information for me. I quickly scrolled past the male celebrities' deliberately chosen abs photos and the weird sizing data he included. What a child. After reading Xianue's file, I was left staring blankly at the documents in my hand. I had assumed she didn't know Shinsu had a white moonlight, that she was just a stand-in. Looking back now, all the signs were there. Shinsu's white moonlight was the most outstanding among the female students I sponsored. She valued her own bright future far more than being with him. It's no secret that Shinsu is into her. According to records, Xianue's original face bore only a passing resemblance to the white moonlight figure. However, after numerous cosmetic tweaks abroad, her current appearance is strikingly similar, about 70% alike. Coupled with her imitation of the other's fashion sense and cultivated aura, at first glance, it's almost impossible to tell them apart. A year ago, she had a sugar daddy, a wealthy Beijing socialite who had beef with Shinsu. When the man's fiancé found out, she dug up all of Xian's dirty laundry and spread it far and wide. She wasn't originally slated to be on this variety show. She pulled strings to get someone else bumped off the list and took their spot. Since she's deliberately trying to get close to Shinsu, I might as well give her a hand. I just wonder if Shinsu, now that he's been reborn, will still play along with her plans. After all, the first thing Shinsu will do after his little episode is to blacklist Xianue, to create an opportunity for them. I specifically instructed my people to ease up on Shinsu's treatment. He used to share a cramped room with others, but now he's been moved to a private chamber. Even his monk's robes are of a finer quality, and he receives specially prepared vegetarian meals delivered to him daily. 25. The abbot told him this special treatment was due to his hysterical fits, but he took it as nothing less than his due. My mother's punishment was merely a light admonishment. Do you truly mistake me for a common monk? Be careful not to misinterpret the situation and jeopardize this ancient temple's 1,000-year legacy. It's all too familiar, that exact tone of his. Just hearing it makes my hand itch to slap him. Even at the moment of rebirth, he felt not a shred of remorse towards me. Looks like I need to make a donation at the temple to help keep the ancient monastery's incense burning for another 1,000 years. With the power of money behind it, the variety show launched quickly. Shinsu stood out starkly among the gray-robed novice monks. He wasn't in the cloister. And he might as well have had Beijing's crown prince written in bold letters above his head. It's a pastoral reality show, but because it's located near a temple, all the guests are required to do volunteer work there. In this life, there's no such thing as a beautiful filter. With an editor's skill, even the deepest hatred can be cut into a stunning masterpiece. The audience's real thoughts were instantly sent to the barrage comments. Xianue kept hovering around Shinsu the whole time she was working. Little monk. What's your name? You're so young. Why would you choose to become a monk? In her previous life, against the backdrop of the ancient temple's 1,000-year-old scenery, Xianue had mistaken Shinsu for a young novice monk when she saw him walking from the guest quarters to the main hall for morning prayers. Shinsu possessed a pampered, saintly, and flawless beauty that perfectly matched the archetypal holy monk described in novels. With his long hair, he resembled a lay Buddhist practitioner who had stepped out of ancient times. Anyone with eyes could tell he was a young master from a wealthy family here for spiritual retreat, which is precisely why the audience felt so at ease and enthusiastic about shipping them. But the Shinsu of today, tempered by years of experience and rough-and-tumble training with the warrior monks, looks every bit the part of a monk. No matter how handsome he is, he's still a monk. Xianue's bold flirting was completely misplaced. What's more, she's currently mired in scandal and this is a live broadcast. Viewers are posting their reactions in real time. They're not going to wait for the edited version to start shipping a CP before commenting. Is she out of her mind? Hitting on a young monk like that? Shouldn't she be keeping her distance? What on earth is she doing? Wasn't her question a bit too intrusive? Asking someone point blank why they chose to become a monk? No, The real issue is she's supposed to be volunteering, she's barely swept a few leaves, just standing there leaning on a broom, while the chopping board in the kitchen next door is practically being hacked to pieces. Did no one notice she showed up to volunteer in a white dress? Does she have any common sense at all? Shinsu didn't take the bait like he had in his past life. But Xinue had her sights set on him and wasn't about to give up easily, for the rest of the show. Shinsu looked thoroughly annoyed, refusing to even glance her way. Xinue finally cornered Shinsu. "Why won't you look at me?" Shinsu's face was a cold mask as he delivered a cruel, cutting remark. "You don't deserve to speak to me with that face." Xinue was dragged through the mud on the trending list. This conversation seems to be full of secrets. People online are already coming forward with first-hand accounts, completely exposing everything Xinue has been up to over the past year. Looks like a certain actress is stirring up trouble again. A year ago, just because she bore a slight resemblance to the white moonlight of the Beijing socialite Crown Prince, she was immediately taken in by the Crown Prince's arch-rival. Did you really think he sent you for plastic surgery for your own good? It was just to use you as a pawn against him. She actually started thinking she was the official girlfriend and had the nerve to confront his fiancé, demanding she step aside. Even after being cut off, she didn't lay low. Do you know how someone with nothing but scandals and no work for over a year landed a variety show? She bullied newcomers to steal their spots and resources. As for her goal, care to guess who she's trying to cozy up to? Live-streamed from start to finish, with real-time viewer comments. If before, the scandals clung to her because she was a nobody, so when new hot topics emerged she was forgotten and the heat died down, then now, Xinue is facing unprecedented, wall-to-wall online hate. 26. In her past life, Shinsu had her back. No matter the online storm, he could orchestrate a PR turnaround at a moment's notice. This time around, she wasn't so lucky. The variety show booted her from the program outright due to the public backlash. Ugh. I've tried so hard to set them up and they're still not together. I'm done believing in love. After leaving the show and finding no one satisfactory, she actually went crawling back to her former sugar daddy to get back together. Do you think I live under a rock? You think Shinsu is still the crown prince of the Beijing social scene? That holier-than-thou attitude of his has really turned him into a monk. There's no such thing as a Beijing scene prince anymore. That's all ancient history. You idiot. How dare you use the face I paid for to chase after Shinsu? Listen up. If you want to land a sugar daddy, fine, but first, get every last bit of that plastic surgery undone. Xinue's surgically enhanced face had fallen out of favor, so she decided to go all in and went under the knife again, but the work was so obvious, she eventually had to resort to controversial stunts and negative publicity just to stay relevant. The newcomer who had been sidelined was brought back on board. The production team also realized it was inappropriate to film volunteer work at the temple, so they switched to a different location. After the crew left the temple, I went up the mountain to offer incense. Shinsu's special privileges were revoked as soon as the production crew left. The original Shinsu had already grown accustomed to them, but now he had to go through the adjustment all over again, and he could no longer maintain his serene, detached demeanor. He was desperate to see me. On the day I went to offer incense, the entire temple was closed for a day of rest, with its gates shut to visitors. Shinsu knew I had arrived, but he could only stand at the very periphery and watch as Shin Yunchen helped me out of the carriage. He was still trying to put on airs, but I didn't even glance his way. What airs were left to put on then? Mother, Mom, it's Xiao Su. I didn't turn around. Instead, Shin Yunchen gave a slight wave of his hand, and two bodyguards covered Shinsu's mouth and led him away. After I had finished offering incense, Shin Yunchen had Shinsu brought back up. Shinsu's eyes blazed with fury as he shook off the two bodyguards. How dare you? You'll pay for treating me this way. No one was listening to him. Shinsu looked at me desperately. Mother, no, Mom, I was wrong. I shouldn't have been so willful. I shouldn't have renounced the world. I'm willing to go back and inherit the family business. I swear I'll lead the Shin family to greater heights. Mom, let's go home. I shook my head. You're Shinsu. My son would never grovel to me like this. I knew something was off when you had that fit last time. Who are you, really? Shinsu no longer cared whether others believed him or not. He laid bare everything about his past life and his rebirth. After I died from heart failure due to overwork, Shinsu and Lu Yingting inherited the Shin family fortune. Lu Yingting then dropped all pretense, moving his illegitimate child and mistress right into the family home. Furthermore, because Shinsu neglected the company's affairs, the majority of the Shin family assets ended up in Lu Yingting's hands. 27. The image Lu Yingting had in his mind gradually crumbled. It wasn't until they lived together that he realized the father he had longed for was, in fact, Not a good one at all, yet, his feelings remained shallow from start to finish, and even so, he didn't react much. At first, things were peaceful enough, but then the Shin family hit a financial crisis. All their cash flow was used to plug the company's deficits, and their original partners began breaking contracts one after another, choosing another firm instead. It was at this very moment that a crisis also emerged in the relationship between Shinsu and Xian Yue. The company their partners defected to turned out to be the business of the White Moonlight, who had just returned from abroad. Having studied overseas all these years, she had blossomed into a stunning, radiant beauty. In a desperate bid to keep Shinsu, Xian Yue demeaned herself utterly, trying to mimic the White Moonlight in every way, but in the end, she was only a superficial copy. Her substance was far inferior, so she schemed to get pregnant with Shinsu's child, only to suffer morning sickness live on a TV show while stirring up dating rumors with another male star. But Shinsu wasn't the type to be tied down by a child, leaving Xian Yue to flee, heartbroken and pregnant. I didn't want to hear about the ensuing, tear-jerking saga of their tortured love, so I just fast-forwarded through it. Basically, Shinsu only remembered Xian Yue after his White Moonlight rejected him, and then he went and won her back. The company's financial deficit grew increasingly severe. It wasn't until Shinsu noticed his lifestyle taking a nosedive that he realized his bank accounts were nearly empty. His share of the assets had been siphoned off by Lu Yingting to plug the company's financial holes. It was then that Lu Yingting showed his true colors. He never cared for Shinsu as a son. He wouldn't necessarily cherish a child born of love, let alone Shinsu, a cold, clinical test tube baby. Shinsu's share of the family fortune was a drop in the bucket compared to the company's losses, but Lu Yingting didn't care. Even if the Shin family went bankrupt, the inheritance he stood to receive would be enough for him to live in luxury for 10 lifetimes. But he had spent years scheming for the company and living as a playboy, with no management skills or legal knowledge to speak of. He was held liable for the company's losses. Not only did he lose his entire inheritance, but he was also saddled with massive debt, and every aspect of his life became severely restricted. Having once believed the Shin family fortune was his for the taking, he had voluntarily renounced his inheritance rights from the Lu family. Now, he wanted to reclaim what was rightfully his. In the end, his siblings screwed him over completely. By the time he came to his senses, he discovered his secret stash of cash had already been cleaned out by his mistress. With the Shin family's fall from grace, Xian Yue was the first to suffer. When she was with Shinsu, she threw her weight around and managed to offend nearly everyone in the entertainment industry. Now, it was finally payback time. Xian Yue became a pariah in the industry and was forced to retire. Shinsu could no longer maintain his aloof, ascetic persona. He never absorbed the lessons I arranged for him back then. He was dead set on becoming a monk at 18. Leaving him without even a basic education. Now, he has no means to make a living. I had to sell off everything I owned of any value. Even the prayer beads I had sought for him were sent to the auction house, fetching a surprisingly large sum. Xian Yue had a child but couldn't kick her lavish spending habits, swiping Shinsu's credit card every single day. Lu Yingting also latched onto him, constantly putting his hand out for money, no matter how much money Shinsu had. It couldn't withstand the two of them burning through it. Their once tortured, deep love devolved into daily, explosive arguments. In the end, as they were finalizing their divorce, the two of them were grappling on the roadside when a speeding luxury car came barreling down the street. Shinsu was reborn. He had no memories of this life, initially thinking it was a merciful second chance from the heavens to right the wrongs of his past life. He soon discovered his circumstances were worlds apart from his previous existence. No one could give him answers, no matter who he asked. He began to suspect he must have done something in this life to anger his mother, and this was his punishment. He was willing to apologize, but the temple didn't even have a phone, so there was simply no way for him to reach me. To this day, I come to the temple to offer incense. Mom, I was wrong. I'm willing to come home and be the heir. I'll marry into the Zhou family and properly manage the family business. Hearing such brazen words, I couldn't help but laugh out loud. Who do you think you are? You think you can just marry into their family whenever you feel like it? After you left to become a monk, I was the one who cleaned up your mess. I went to their home to apologize, acknowledged Miss Zhou as my goddaughter, provided her dowry, and personally acted as matchmaker. She's already married into another family now. You are not the Shin family heir. The moment you chose to become a monk, it was considered a renunciation of your inheritance rights. Shinsu's eyes were filled with disbelief. Impossible. Mom, I'm your only son. How can you stand by and watch the family fortune fall into the hands of those distant relatives? This isn't some feudal dynasty. Just because people flatter you by calling you young master, you actually think you're the crown prince. How could a family this large possibly have only one heir? Back when my parents passed away, there were over a dozen contingency plans just for taking over the company. What does bloodline even pass on? You can't even be sure if relatives can be confirmed as blood-related. Shinsu is the heir because the law designates him as the primary successor. If this heir were to die young, prove infertile, or be unable to inherit the estate for a special reason like entering monastic life, then of course there are alternative successors. Shin Yunshin is my designated second successor. The third successor is the very person Shinsu has been pining for, his unattainable white moonlight. Positions should go to the most capable. If Shinsu truly proves unfit for the responsibility, he will only inherit the legal share without any management rights. Operational control will be handed over to the two alternate successors, including the girl I've been sponsoring all these years. She will also join the Shin group. I have already paved a broad and smooth road for the Shin family. Even if Shinsu were a complete fool, he could still live out his days in idle comfort and wealth. It's a shame he just couldn't stay put. In my past life, before I died, I did two things to prevent the Shin family's empire from collapsing. First, I sent people to find Shin Yunshin. I wanted him found alive or dead, even if it was just his remains. They were to be dug up and brought to me. Second, I collaborated with my white moonlight from the inside and out, executed a strategic withdrawal to shed the old shell, and rebuilt a new Shin enterprise from the ground up to solve all the problems at once. This way, not only do Lu Yingting and Shinsu end up with nothing to show for their efforts, but I can also completely rid myself of the Shin family's collateral branches with inheritance rights. I no longer have to worry about the Shin family fortune falling into the wrong hands. All I need is for my beloved white moonlight to take the Shin surname, become my adopted daughter, and carry on the family legacy. Care to guess why you ended up becoming a monk? I asked Shinsu this, a question that had long perplexed him as well. Because, I've been reborn, too, silly child. Shinsu was utterly devastated, but there was nothing he could do. However, he couldn't stay at the temple any longer. That variety show had given him a certain level of fame, and staying would only cause trouble for the temple. 28. Shin Yunshin volunteered to take Shinsu off my hands. I nodded. He's an adult, just don't kill him. Do you still care for him, sister? For the first time, Shin Yunshin was this insistent on an answer. The corners of his eyes tinged with red, a sign of the wild hatred festering within. I gave his hand a gentle tug, a gesture that always seemed to calm him. He made his own bed, and now he has to lie in it, whatever comes of it. He'll have to swallow the consequences himself. I just don't want you getting tangled up in karma that isn't yours. Shin Yunshin knelt before me, resting his head on my lap, and nuzzled his cheek against the back of my hand. Sister, I don't want to be your heir. I just want to stay by your side forever. I'll die before you do. In my past life, I never received any news of Shin Yunshin until the day I died. If even the Shin family's influence, combined with all the resources my adopted daughter had built up overseas over the years, couldn't find him, then he probably really did die before me. We won't die, Shin Yunshin. You'll stay with me forever, just like the first 10 years we spent together, inseparable.